One of the things that a lot of people have different perspective about is the economy of the nation. Sometimes when the experts are speaking, you'll be wondering, what are they talking about? Are they speaking English, or they are speaking French or China, as a matter of fact? A lot of Nigerians since 2023 have had different perspectives, all right, as far as the Nigerian economy is concerned. Some experts will tell you we are doing well. Some will tell you what we are having is a marginal growth. Some will tell you it is just a sector of the economy that is working. Some will tell you, apart from the service sector, take for instance the telecoms, the banking sector, and the rest, all other aspects of the economy, all other sectors are crawling. But how has this affected the life of the average Nigerian on the street? That is the most important thing. No matter what is happening in the economy, no matter what the experts are saying, no matter what this administration is saying, what is the positive effect of all these analyses, of all these speculations, of all these statements to the average Nigerian? And today we have a developmental economist who will be joining us on the conversation today as we do a little evaluation of the Nigerian's economy. Don't forget that we would also do a comparison of the 2024 economy and that of 2025, because we are moving out of 2025 gradually, so we can actually know the direction we are heading in 2026. Joining me on the conversation is Prince Dennis Adesanya. It's good to have you join us on the program this morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Mr. Ramsey. It's always nice to be here.
Thank you very much. Well, you're an expert, and if there is anything Nigerians want to hear is, we can go to the market now and enjoy ourselves. We can buy things at a very cheap rate. Even though someone told me that, I've not been to the market recently, but someone told me that the prices of commodities are reducing, but then the wherewithal, the money to give them is the little challenge that, Nigerians, I don't want to say Nigerians are never satisfied, but then I think it's because of what a lot of people are going through. So as it is right now, when we talk about the economy of a nation, what are we really referring to? Before we get started, let's establish that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. When we talk about the GDP, that's the gross domestic product of the nation. So it talks about the aggregate production of goods and services in that economy in a particular year or a quarter. Is it measured quarterly or yearly? So it shows the total amount of goods that were produced in that. But like, so it shows their production status in that economy. It shows that how viable they are, how productive, let me put it that way, the economy is. And of course, the last report that was brought out by the National Bureau of Statistics, that was there for the third quarter of 2023, released a few weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, shows that the economy grew by 3.98% at the third quarter of 2023, so which is a slight improvement compared to the 3.86% it grew at the same period last year. So this year now we are seeing economic grow by 3.9%. So last year it grew by 3.86%. By and large, we've seen that the GDP was rebased by the National Bureau of Statistics. So they changed the base year to 2019, and that was in January this year. And also they were able to, bring in some sectors that were not included in the calculation of GDP initially. So they expanded the calculation of the GDP, to really bring about, what is happening currently. For example, they brought in sectors like pension fund, sectors like e-commerce, sectors like marine economy, sectors like tourism and tourism and the culture. These sectors were not included in the GDP before. These days we have e-commerce. People buy most things online than even going to the market physically. And also, the entertainment industry is also part of our production in Nigeria. Remember, we have we are doing well in the music industry in the world. We are doing well in the film industries. So all these areas has been brought into the GDP. So that's why the GDP was rebased to include new sectors that were not captured in the calculation of the GDP earlier. And also we saw that the GDP report shows that there were key improvements let me say, there were just key improvement across some sectors of the economy. There were mixed recovery, if I can call it, in some key sectors of the economy. For example, we saw the agricultural sector and the industrial sector posting regrowth, really strong growth than they posted at the same quarter last year. We saw the service sector, dominating again. The service sector, dominating in real output. In output, because they have been the one dominating. So we saw the service sector, we saw the service sector coming about strongly with their dominance in overall output in the third quarter of the year. So by and large, the economy sustained moderate expansion despite the lingering, constraints the economy is facing. What I'm saying is that the economy was able to expand moderately despite the challenges facing, despite the insecurity, despite the high exchange rate, despite the rising cost of foods, rising cost of things, and also despite the electricity issue we are facing, the economy was still able to rise. So we see that the service sector dominated the economy again, and I can say that at this juncture, the Nigerian economy has shifted from agricultural-dominated economy to service-dominated economy, because the service sector has come to stay, is now the dominant contributor to the economy. And when we talk about the service sector, we talk about we have some subsectors in the service sector, like the financial services, talking about the banking service, the insurance area. Also, we have a trade as well. We have the telecommunication sector. We also have the IT sector. So all these subsectors make up the service sector, which is now the dominant sector in the Nigerian economy. Unlike the way we used to have the agriculture as a dominant sector in the economy. So that's what we can get from the GDP report released by the NBS.
Oh, all right. I think they just showed us that GDP report released by the NBS. Now, I can see that the total recap of 3.98%. Then the contribution of oil and non-oil sectors in Q3 2025 and of course Q2 2025. In Q3 2025, for oil, we have 3.44%. Then in Q2, we have 4.05%. Then for the non-oil sector, 96.56% and 95.95%. Then if you go down a little bit from that release, non-oil contribution to real GDP, that's the breakdown now that we have, where we have agriculture 31.21%. Then you get to the industry, which is also a major hub, like a lot of people will refer to it as 15.77%. Then the service sector has the highest of 53.02%. Now, what drove the service sector that it is ranking like this? Because we need to look at that, because if you look at the Q3 2025 and the Nigeria's GDP of 3.98%, agriculture, the industry sector, and all of that, if you look at the service sector, it has the highest. So what is the drive? What is the drive for the service sector, so that at least other sectors can take a cue if it's possible?
Service sector. Actually, what happened is that there's some factors that really drove output in the service sector in 2025, you can put it that way. The first of the factors can be described as the PMI, that's the Purchasing Managers Index. It has been growing over time. And what do we mean by Purchasing Managers Index? This is an index released by CBN every quarter. It monitors the health of the manufacturing and the service sector. It monitors the health, the stability of the manufacturing sector. If it's below 50, that means that the manufacturing sector is contrasting. That means if you say contrasting in the economy, we mean it's declining. So if it's above 50, that means the manufacturing sector is expanding. So the PMI has been growing over time. In the course of the year, we've seen high PMI coming out every month. For example, if we compare to, it has grown by over 54% compared to the PMI we had in the corresponding quarter last year, that's 2024. And also, if you compare to the the previous quarter, that was Q2 2025, it has grown by over 49%. So with PMI growing, definitely, output will be increasing in the service sector. Another factor that also led to the to the increment in output in the service sector is what I'll call the decline in money sector, the decline in in money supply growth. Money supply growth has been declining massively. For example, now the money supply growth has declined by over 50% compared to what it was at the same quarter last year. What do I mean by money supply growth? Money supply can be, can be defined like the total amount of the currency in circulation in an economy. So in Nigeria, it has been declining. So that means that we have seen the money supply falling down, declining over time, whereas output has been increasing.
Does it have impact? Does it have the decline? Because a lot of people even talked about it, that politicians are hiding the money and there is no money in circulation.
No,
and this is affecting Nigeria.
It's value of money people are holding in the economy. So now we are witnessing, a rise in output because the GDP increase in output without a corresponding rise in money supply. So this is the reason why the price is going down. Prices are falling down because why? The money supply, if you are having too much money, when the output is not growing, definitely you have inflation. Because that's why sometimes you see the CBN, if they feel like there's too much money in circulation, causing inflation, they like to mop up the liquidity in the economy. They they will increase the MPR, that's the monetary policy rate, so they can tighten the economy. So they withdraw money from circulation by increasing the MPR, so that they can mop up the excess liquidity. But naturally now, we've seen that money supply growth is falling down and output is growing. So that's the reason why price of goods and services are really falling. Then another factor that's led to the increase in output in the service sector is the exchange rate. Exchange rate has been stable over time this year. For example, if you compare to the corresponding quarter, 2024, exchange rate was about 1,006 to 1,007. But at the third quarter, exchange rate, hovers between 1,480 naira to 1,500 naira. Even at this time last year, we were exchanging dollar for 1,009, 1,008. So the exchange rate has been stable this year. It has not been volatile. The volatility has reduced in the foreign exchange market. So that's another factor, of course, that led to increase in output from the service sector. So all these factors combined together push up the investors' confidence in the economy. So which has led to output in the service sector, and of course has led to improvement in the GDP, because we can see that the foreign investors now have much confidence in the economy because of the factor they are seeing. They are seeing exchange rate is now stable. They are seeing PMI is now increasing. Also, they can see that inflation is falling down as well. So these factors combined together, to me, are the main reason why output is rising in the service sector.
But you talked about from your last statement now, you can see you talked about investors, and one of the things that boosts the economy of a nation, the GDP. Anything I talk about here, Dennis, I'm concerned about the Nigerians, because I want Nigerians to know that, they are the reason we are out there in the forefront of all this whole thing. Now, with all of this, all right, you talked about investor. I remember a lot of companies left Nigeria. A lot of businesses folded up. Can we now say, with what is happening in the economy now, all right, the GDP and everything now, can we now say the economy is ripe enough for investors probably relocating back if possible, and Nigerians having an more enabling environment to go about their business? So what's the general overview of the Nigeria economy now as it is? Can investors now be their chance and say, oh, I left, I want to come back because the economy is stable now?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. First, to answer your question, I'll put it that some foreign investors that left the country earlier in the year, you are right, some companies relocated out of the country. But I can tell you that at the moment, the Nigerian macroeconomic fundamentals are showing cautious signs of recovery, or let me say cautious signs of improvement. What I mean by macroeconomic fundamentals, we're talking about the macroeconomic variables. We're talking about, talking about the variables, the indicators that measures the health, the stability, the growth trajectory of a nation. Talking about the likes of GDP, inflation rate, exchange rate, what have you, the PMI I talked about, the capital flow, the foreign direct investment, the what do we have in the reserve, talking about the foreign reserve. All of these are macroeconomic indicators that that measures the health, the stability of an economy. So right now, these macroeconomic fundamentals are showing cautious signs of recovery. I call it cautious because we are seeing positive signs coming out from this economy. For example, now we've seen GDP rising over time. Inflation has been coming down. Of course, we see that PMI has been doing very well as well. So, in the course of the time, this signs are showing that the economy, it has been, should I say, is regaining big momentum at this moment. Although the structural imbalance between the oil sector and the non-oil sector still persists in the economy. We can see that the oil sector still dominates, still contribute more to the GDP figure that was released. At least it still contributes more than 57% to the GDP. The social imbalance is still there, but that doesn't mean that we are not seeing signs of recovery from the economy. And at the same time, when I talk about the economy, Nigeria needs to, we need to put in place some measures that can make the economy to be stronger. For example, I can talk about the fact that, like we have now, the GDP, like I said, is recovering, right? But at the moment, the economy is showing signs of recovery. So, when the economy like this is recovering, you may not be where you want to be, definitely, but we are seeing signs that there are some growth that has been recorded in the economy.
Okay. All right, that's great. Now, there is something I really want us to look at. And of course, that is, you've talked about, in fact, what you're saying now is more or less like giving Nigerians hope. All right, that is more or less like giving Nigerians hope. Someone told me, he said, well, the price of oil or maybe the price of products in the market compared to last year Christmas has actually changed drastically this time. Now, let's talk about the sustainability, all right, of an economy. Because one of the things that is common with the economy of nations, not just Nigeria alone, is the fluctuation. And if it is not controlled, by the time it fluctuates, it becomes a problem. So let's talk about sustainability.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. To sustain the little gains we have recorded from the economy. Before I answer the question, I think I would like to go back to when you talk about the state of the economy.
Yes.
I'd like to ask that Nigerian economic, shall I say, the growth numbers we have witnessed in the economy have not been able to address the economic challenges facing the country, because the growth has not been inclusive growth. The growth we're having currently has not been inclusive. I talked about the service sector powering this growth. That's not really too healthy for the economy. If we have sectors like agriculture, like manufacturing, powering the growth, the growth will have been inclusive. That is why unemployment is not coming down despite the increase in the GDP growth. Because why? How many people are employed in the telecom sector? How many people are employed in the oil sector? So if we were powered by manufacturing sector, by agri sector, by industrial sector, by even trade sector, so this will have been a robust growth for the economy. So that's why, it's very ironical, or should I say, it's something not, something saddening that the Nigerian GDP figures has not been able to translate into economic benefit for most Nigerians. So to answer your questions now, you talk about how can we sustain this little recovery we are having in the economy. I think the sustainability will rely more on the synergy between the fiscal policy and the monetary policy in the economy. So fiscal policies, we talk about, the government expenditure, we talked about the taxation, that's from the Ministry of Finance side. Then we talk about the monetary sector, that's controlling the money supply in the economy. That's from the monetary sector from the CBN side. So there must be synergy between these two factors, between these two policies. Because, for example now, the fiscal policy must emphasize on accountability and at the same time must emphasize on efficiency. Why? For the monetary sector, they must continue, they should be able to sustain, they should be able to continue their predictability, because the monetary sector is predictable right now. So they should be able to sustain that, and also they must be supportive of the real sector. When we talk about the real sector, we talked about, sectors that produces tangible goods and services, like agricultural sector, like manufacturing sector. You say, I keep on hammering on manufacturing. This is what can increase output. This is where you can get foreign exchange from. So the monetary policy needs to support the real sector of the economy with a good synergy between them and the fiscal policy. That's number one. Then number two, we know that this economy now, Nigeria must diversify its economy beyond oil. And if you're to do that, the best way to do that is to expand the value-added activities in the manufacturing sector, in the agricultural sector, in the mining sector. You know, we need to stop exporting crude, should I call it like materials? In our sector now, we have cocoa. We should stop exporting cocoa seed. We should be able to produce this thing, you know, convert them into, you know, into teas, into chocolate before we export them. So that's what I call value addition in the service. We have crude that we're exporting. Thank God with Dangote Refinery now, we are adding value to that crude before you sell. Refine it to oil, gas, petrol, diesel before you sell them out. So we have minerals in the country. Don't just export these minerals. Make sure that you convert them to products before you sell them out. So that's what can really give the country. That's why I said there must be value addition, activities in the manufacturing sector, in the agri sector, for us to sustain these, growth we are witnessing. And at the same time, we need to make sure that for Nigerians now, we need to learn from countries that have invested in non-oil sector, to stabilize the economy. To bring stability to the economy, we must invest in the non-oil sector. For example, I think about 2 days ago, I was surprised when I discovered that Brazil earns over $51 billion annually from the export of soya beans.
Just soya beans, an agricultural product.
Indonesia earns over $31 billion annually from the export of palm oil and rubber.
And these are things we have in Nigeria in abundance.
In 1970, we used to be the world leading producer of palm oil before Indonesia took over. It was told that this Indonesia even came to Nigeria to borrow, palm seed from NIFO in Benin. So today, they are the world leading producer of palm oil and rubber. So they are generating over $40 billion from it annually. Even, I think about 10 days ago, last week, that Vietnam generate over $50 billion from the export of rice, which most of the rice you see here are from Thailand, Vietnam. So we should be able to learn from countries that have invested in, in non-oil sector of the economy to do well. And also, we need to sustain the infrastructural drive in the economy. What do I mean by that? We need to upgrade our transport services. Like, for example, now, railway service may need to be upgraded. If you do that, it will reduce the logistic cost for business. It will enhance our, export of goods. It will also boost our GDP as well. So when I'm talking about that, even port facilities should be upgraded. If you do all this, definitely you can sustain this growth. Also, we should be able to fight insecurity, because that is the major problem now for Nigeria. We should be able to fight insecurity in 2026, ensure that farmers can go to farm, ensure that people feel safer in the country, and also the issue of poor electricity supplies needs to be tackled. We need to tackle that in these countries. So we can do all those things. We will be able to build on the little gain, the moderate gain the economy has able to achieve in 2025.
Yeah, I think, meaning the government of Nigeria have a whole lot to do. When we were talking about Vietnam and, of course, Indonesia just now, I was perplexed because I could remember, just like you walk down memory lane, talking about the fact that they pick seeds from Nigeria, and, of course, today they are making a lot of money from it. So what do you think is the problem, all right, that... why are we not, what do you think in your own perspective is the reason why there is no diversification? Because attention is on oil most times. You see, when you talk about, if you want to be big in Nigeria, like we talked about it during the introduction, our crude is being exported, all right, refined and brought in. We've suffered from this for a very long time until we have a Dangote refinery, and even Dangote refinery is getting crude from outside Nigeria, like he has said. We just talked about the agricultural sector. Imagine these are things that we have in abundance. Now, Dennis, what do you think, all right, the federal government needs to do so that at least we can up GDP? See, when you talked about Indonesia, you know, I felt in Vietnam. Is it the government? What can you say to the government right now? Because I feel the bulk of the whole thing is on the federal government to do.
Yeah, you know, like I said earlier, that to sustain the living growth, the synergy should be between the fiscal policy and monetary policy. You
Okay.
know, economic
Policy is
stability,
playing a role here.
economic stability would definitely, if you have strong economic stability, definitely it will lead to improved living standard for Nigerians. It will also lead to, you know, huge competitiveness for our businesses. So for the economy to grow, as I said earlier, we need to diversify.
Okay.
We need to keep relying on oil. You know, whenever the oil, it's a very common phrase that whenever the oil sector or the global oil price sneezes, the economy catches cold. We are still running an oil-dependent economy. Whereas we have agriculture, we have arable lands. So that's why I said, if you solve insecurity, definitely you solve most of these problems. Of course, tackle electricity failure. You know, companies are powering their own, you know, their own industries, definitely themselves. This is really increasing the cost of operation for them. It will lead to it will lead to a reduction in their profits. Definitely, they will not be able to expand. If they can't expand, they can't employ people. So all this needs to be tackled. Then when you talk about the economy now, you know, most importantly, institutional credibility and good governance are the bedrock of foreign investors' confidence. Even they are the bedrock of you know, sustainable prosperity. We need to have strong institutions. For example, talking about INEC, the police, the judiciary, they have to be, you know, they have to be credible. They have to be strong. So these are what foreign investors look into in the country. If I bring my company down to Nigeria and something happens to me, can I get you know, justice from the judiciary? If something happens, so they watch all this. Is there good governance? So we need strong institutions. This will convince the foreign investors to come into the country. Even for you to prosper, that's why I said, for us to have you know, sustainable prosperity, we need good governance and, of course, credible institutions, because these are what are definitely really bringing the foreign investors into the country. And as we are seeing now, we've seen that, I can tell you that, I think last week, PZ Cushon announced that they've discarded their plan to exit the country. They were about leaving Nigeria in 2026. Now they said they discarded that plan just because they've seen signs of recovery, according to them, in the economy, that they're not leaving again. Also, paper that come to Nigeria again, they said they left Nigeria before, I think about 10 years ago. Now they are back in the country as well. So we are seeing evidences that foreign investors are now beginning to have confidence in the economy. But by and large, 2026 is a year before the election. It's a year of primaries. So these foreign investors will be watching the Nigerian economy, because if there's any problem, if there will be problem, we'll get to know next year. Like I always say that the year before the election is the real year. That's where you have the primaries. That's where you determine what will happen. So the foreign investor, as always, they will sit in a corner and be looking at, you know, what's happening in the economy. If they feel that there's heat in the polity, they will withdraw their funds. In just a week, they can withdraw their funds from the economy. Most of the time they do that. They prefer to hold on their money, withdraw the funds from the economy, and of course wait until when there's right atmosphere, maybe after the election, for them to come back and drop their money in the economy.
All right, that is Dennis Asane, and of course he's a development economist. Let's go on a quick break. When we return from this break, the conversation continues, because we need to do a little comparison of the past GDP of 2024 and of course 2025 when we return, and of course what Nigerians are saying right now. We'll return after this break. Stay with us. All right, let's get to do an assessment, an evaluation of the GDP in 2025 compared to 2024. Let's know where we were and where we are coming from and where we are heading in 2026. All right, Dennis, let's look at, because if you need to know where you are coming from, where you are, and where you are going to. That there's a way that builds hope and confidence in Nigeria. Like you just talked about 2027 now. 2026 is going to be a determinant year for a lot of people. Should I do this business? Should I not do it? Should I bring in this investor? Should I not bring it? Should I put my money in this or service sector? Where do I put my money? Oil? Okay, they just talked about agriculture. Should I go into agriculture? But before you do all of this, you need to do an evaluation of how it was. How did we fare in 2025 compared to 2024? And what are we expecting in 2026?
Thank you, Mr. Rapsey. If I'm to do a comparison of the economy in 2025 to 2024, I would like to use the macroeconomic fundamentals, which I call the macroeconomic variables. They are the economic indicators. Like I said earlier, they determine the health of an economy, they determine the stability, and of course, the growth trajectory of an economy. So we've talked about, let's look at exchange rate. Exchange rate has been stable this year. It's a very clear fact we want to see. At this time last
compared
year,
to 2024.
Compared to 2024. At this time last year, dollar was exchanging for 1,009, 1,008. But this year, it has been stable. We've seen, shall I say, the margin between the parallel rate and the official rate has closed in a significant way. It has closed significantly, comparing the margin between them. So definitely, the economic actors now have been able to plan well because the exchange rate has been stable. From the third quarter of the year to this last quarter of the year, we've seen exchange rate going for between 1,450 naira to 1,480 to 1,490 naira. We know that it's still high, but at least it's now stable. So this is a very, very good and valuable point for foreign investors, for anybody. For example, those in the manufacturing sector, they cannot really invest or plan when the exchange rate is volatile. When it changes anytime. Because, for example, now they can order for plant equipment machinery from abroad at this exchange rate. Before it arrived in Nigeria, exchange rate has changed. So it doesn't, it leaves room for uncertainty. It doesn't allow people to plan. Businessmen can't really plan. They can't really invest. So when the economy is stable, foreign investors can come to Nigeria. If I plan by this rate, so what do I get? So definitely it has been stable. Also, we look at inflation. At this time last year, inflation was about 39.8%. So it has reduced by more than half to 2025. In January, I remember, inflation rate, I think, was around 28.48%. Right now, according to the MBS inflation rate figure report in November, at the moment, inflation rate is 14.45%, which was more than half of what we have last year. Even food inflation last year was about 40%. Right now, food inflation is 11.08%.
Wow.
So if you go to the market, you discover that the price at which you bought a tomato, which you bought right last year, they're not the same with the price which you are buying them at this year. So also when we look at, like I said, for foreign investors, they are really coming back. I was watching a program on CNN last week, I think on Bloomberg on CNN, where investors were talking about the Nigerian economy. The foreign investors, suggested that if these current economic reforms could be sustained, that a lot of them will be willing to return back to the country or to come and invest in the country. For the first time, we are having confidence going to the new year that there will not be much divergence in speculation in the foreign exchange market that is more stable than that it used to be. Also, we can see that the general consensus is that the Nigerian economy has managed to stabilize in 2025. So other key factors we can look into, talking about our foreign reserve. The foreign reserve at the moment, the net foreign reserve, according to CBN last week, is about $28 billion. It was not as high as that last year. Last year, I think we were about maybe like 17 or 18, talking about the net reserve now, not the gross reserve, last year. I talked about the PMI, that's the Purchasing Managers Index, to know the strength of the manufacturing sector. It has been expanding all over the 2025. Now we have PMI at above 55%, which shows that it's really, really improving. Also, GDP has been growing over time. GDP is now 3.98% at, third quarter of the year, compared to 3.86% that it was at the corresponding quarter last year. So if you ask me, by and large, the economy is regaining momentum. We are seeing some recovery this year compared to what it was last year. Definitely, it might not have led to food on people's table much. It might not have led to more money in people's pockets. But the purchasing power is increasing as well. The reason why we don't have most Nigerians are not benefiting from the impact of this growth is that in economics, there's what we call the time lag. When something happens now, you don't feel the impact immediately. It takes time for you to feel the impact. And also, the fact is that, I said earlier, the sectors growing are not the sectors that can really employ people. That's why unemployment has not really dropped compared to the growth rate we are recording.
In fact, that's
in
the
GDP.
the unemployment is even increasing.
That's
And
why I said
it's
the monetary
worrisome.
sector, the monetary policy must support the real sector of the economy. Which sector are the real sector? The manufacturing sector. We need to be productive. If you produce, then you can export. You can earn foreign exchange. You need to be productive. They must support the agri sector. These are the real sector that produces tangible goods and services. The industrial sector. So these are the sectors that need to be supported by monetary policy. These are the sectors that can employ people. We've seen service sector growing. The bank sector is growing. How many people are employed by the banks? The oil industry. How many people can be employed by the oil and gas industry? So these are the sectors powering the economy. So by and large, compared to last year, we've seen a massive improvement in the economy, although it may not have translated much to tangible, benefits for Nigerians or to increase the living standard of the people. Like I said earlier, economic stability will lead to, improved living standard for Nigerians, and of course, it will also lead to huge credibility for our businesses. So I expect a better 2026 for Nigerian economy. I'd also like to add that I think about 2 weeks ago, the International Monetary Fund increased their GDP projection outlook for Nigeria this year. They projected that the Nigerian economy will grow by, I think, 3.82% earlier this year. That's their projection. So a few weeks ago, they increased their projection based on what they are seeing, based on the economic fundamentals they are seeing in the country. They increased it now to 3.98%.
Wow.
So they also increased their projection for next year. So which shows that that's why I said we are seeing cautious signs of recovery in the economy. It may not be where we want it to be, but at least for we economics, seeing those fundamentals, seeing those economic indicators are showing positive signs, it shows that if we are able to build on the little recovery we are having, we should be able to have a better 2026 for the country. But like I said earlier, we need to tackle some key bottlenecks destroying the economy. Insecurity is a very big problem. We need to tackle that. It's very compulsory. Electricity needs to be stable as well. We need to look into that area as well. These are what can improve the living standard of the people. We need to look at infrastructure gaps. We need to close them. Roads construction, we need to construct more roads, fix the ones that are not doing well. Ports need to be upgraded. Railway services should, be improved upon. These are what can help the people. These are what can improve the living standard of the people.
All right. I will soon let you go, but before we go, a lot of people are waiting for the implementation of the tax law in 2026.
In a
few days' time, and a lot of people. I'm really going to have you, all right, talk about that on a larger scale, educate the people what it is and all of that. But then, for the purpose of this discussion, do you think that is also going to add, all right, tax payments? Do you think it's going to add to the economic growth in 2026? And of course, just a little insight into it.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Ramsey. I forgot to ask something earlier. Like I said, that we need to diversify the economy beyond oil. So diversify the economy means that, we need to focus more on non-oil sectors. What are the non-oil sectors? Mining sector, agri sector, and of course, taxation. So
okay, taxation is part of it.
It's non-oil sector that does not include oil. So when you talk about taxation, that's the fiscal policy side. So a lot of people don't really understand, or maybe shall I say, I've not really gone through the new tax laws, tax reforms laws. Right from the onset, people have misconceptions about the tax reform act then, before it was passed into law by the National Assembly. But they feel that they're going to bring, going to take more money from my pocket to make me poorer, to make business poorer. But in the real sense of it, this tax reform bill will really, really restructure the Nigerian economic landscape. The fiscal landscape of the economy will be restructured by this tax reform act. Because why? Most of the laws are obsolete. Like I said earlier, most of our laws are obsolete. This new tax reform bill, in a nutshell, is not going to take away more money from the people. In fact, the amount of money to be paid by those who are earning low income has reduced. If you earn below minimum wage now, you'll not be taxed. If your net earnings in a year is 800,000 naira and below, you'll not be taxed. So those who are to be taxed higher are those on the high income side. Those who earn above 10 million naira in a month, 12 million naira a year, they are the ones that are going to pay more in this new Tax Reform Act. So even for companies, before companies with threshold of 50 billion naira will pay tax. But right now, if you are a company, I'll be grouped into small company and large companies. So any small company, any company whose turnover in a year is 50 million naira or below are now being exempted from paying company income tax. Why those above 50 million naira, 50 billion naira as their turnover are the ones to pay tax in this Reform Act. So, but a lot of misconception about nobody likes to hear about tax. When you talk about tax, people believe, like they say,
extortion.
Two things are constant in this life: debt and tax. So people don't like to pay tax, so they don't want to hear about the new reform bills. But by
Two
and large,
things are constant in
the new
life.
reform bills is bringing more people into the tax net, but it's not necessarily increasing the tax rate. That's what people need.
But a lot of people even feel that it's the average Nigerians that pay tax, because if you recharge your 100 naira for telco, tax is being deducted. If you do your bank transactions, VAT is being deducted. If you do anything, so the average Nigerians feel, well, these people have come to take more from us to add to themselves. That's what people believe.
I don't think is correct. Though when you receive a lot, you get 15 naira stamp duty a month from that. It's more than 10,000 naira. The reason for the Tax Reform Act is to really increase revenue generation in the country, but not to tax the poor the more. The new Tax Reform Act does not tax the people. Does not increase the burden of taxation on poor people. I stand on that point. If you go through the act, it's only bringing, we collect more from the rich, from this, not even the rich, the super rich, those who are high income earners. The amount of tax they pay compared to the poor before is very small. So now this tax is the one that is growing. It's progressive. You can see that those who earn like 1 million naira, 2 million naira are not really being taxed. Even they are paying lesser than they will be paying this year. But those who are super rich, high income earners, that they want to pay more, the reform bills. So definitely is to increase revenue generation for the country, because why the revenue from oil is going down. We can see that in the budget this year, oil was projected at $85 per barrel. That's the averagely. This year, the average oil price should be around $60 to $65 per barrel. So which means that we are facing dwindling revenue in the country. So the federal government thought that, okay, how can we do this? We should look to non-oil sector, like I said. And a very good non-oil sector is taxation. So that's why they're looking into that area. But when you talk about tax, people don't want to hear about taxation. They feel that you are taking money from my pocket, you are reducing my purchasing power. So maybe we'll get to come here some other time and talk deeply about the
Tax Reform Act. We are going to have a special time to talk about taxation, as a matter of fact, because a lot of people believe that it is only the poor that pay taxes in Nigeria. But then I want to say a very big thank you to you for joining us on the conversation today. It's a whole lot, and we're looking forward to a robust economic growth in 2026, even though it's going to be a determinant year because of the preparation for 2027 election. Then we'll still have you again. We'll talk about tax separately, and we'll do a breakdown, okay, of what it takes, what is going to cost Nigerians, and all of that. Thank you very much once more, Prince Dennis, for joining us on the conversation today.
You're welcome, Mr. Ramsey. It's always my pleasure to be here.
All right, thank you. Well, this is going to be the size of the conversation today, but as it is right now, we'll go on a quick break. After this break, Priscilla Obasi will take us through the second conversation. Stay with us.